Hello out there, and one quick note before we get started today, guys. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been engaged in commenting on the past couple videos I've posted. You know, there was one where I asked about your steel preference in fixed blades, and then the past video about the $20 to $30 budget knife price range. A lot of really good feedback on that as well, and it's just been great to go through those comment sections and read those comments and respond to them and get everybody's perspective. And really, that's the reason why I'm here. That's the best part of having a channel. But on these past two videos especially, it's been very cool, you know, just seeing all the different points of view. And on the last one, just hearing about some new models and brands that I should check out, and people agreeing with me or disagreeing with me and letting me know why. It's just been a very good experience. So thank you to everybody for being a part of this. It's awesome. But today we're going to get into a new knife from Steel Will. And you know, guys, I've had my troubles in the past trying to pronounce new knives, and companies continue to make new models with names that I just don't know how to say. And I was an English major, but I'm just going to try to work my way through this one. Here we have it. It is the Steel Will Knives Shaula or Shaula. One of the two. And if it's something different, I don't know what it is. But with the name out of the way, guys, the good thing, once we get past the name, we have got ourselves what I think is an absolute home run of a knife. I'm really stoked about this one. It's doing a lot for me in terms of just the actual physical attributes, which of course we'll get into in just a minute, but also my overall opinion of Steel Will and my excitement for their brand. This has really rejuvenated that, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well. Also, if you are interested in this knife, you'd like another perspective, let me link down below to my buddy Knife Crazy. I met him at Blade Show 2019. I've been following him for a long time, but I was in line at Blade Show and he just ended up being in line behind me. I met him and his son. Really cool experience. Good guy. A good type of content that he has over there on his channel, and he already has a first look at this knife up as well. All right, but let's just get into it, starting with size comparisons and all the details that you need to know. As you see, the way it's laid out on the table here, we have a cutting edge that is just about 3.5 inches exactly. So when we're talking about overall size comparison, the Paramilitary 2 is actually sort of right on point with it. The PM2 has about 1/4 of an inch in overall length. You can see the difference in blade length is a little bit more leaning towards the Steel Will just because of that like blade to handle ratio that we have on the PM2. But yeah, overall length on this knife is right up there. We're going to do a couple other size comparisons. Let's do some color comparisons as well. So here's the Case and Southern Grind CG01. So very similar blade length, a little bit longer in the handle with the case. And then here is the Deadpool Mini Griptilian. A little bit deeper red here. So what's interesting is that in this video, you're going to see that red really popping. It's going to look brighter than it actually is. It's not as deep, you know, and I don't know, flat, let's say, as this, but it's not nearly as bright as it shows up on camera. So I will say that here is a Spyderco box, pretty similar to that color. So if you have one of those nearby, you can probably get a good idea of it. When we're talking about weight, we've got what I think is a very agreeable weight. I mean, for a knife of this length, 3.64 ounces. Yeah, I mean, that's great. It's very light in hand, feels good, no issues there. Just for comparison, the PM2 here, 3.87. So a lot of similarities in size and weight with that PM2. So let's get into the specs and the variety and the other things that we can be expecting when we look at this model. So what we have here is a red G10 handle scale with a black wash finish on the blade. I think there are 4 different variations that are released. Black, black G10. I think there's blue G10. So coming out with a few different colors right off the bat. This was the only one that had the black hardware and blade with a colored scale, though. I think the blue was a satin. So I definitely wanted to go with this. Don't have a lot of red knives, so yeah, it was an easy choice for me. The steel on this is D2. So we are talking about a more inexpensive knife from them, not one of their, $100 plus knives. This is going to be around $60, but we'll touch on that a little bit more later. I do like the blade shape. I mean, it is not anything out of the ordinary, but it just works with the lines of the knife. So yeah, really happy with that. What I have used it for at this point, just some boxes and stuff, it's been very good slicer, a little bit of belly, and we also have a nice acute tip, good for piercing as well. One thing that's very impressive on this knife as we move on back is the jimping. The jimping is really good. I mean, this would have been a good knife, but like all of those little detail spots that I look for are all delivering on this knife. So that's a good spot of it. And you're probably looking at a picture of it as well right now, but here is the jimping. There's a good amount of it. Maybe I'd want it to extend just a little bit further here, but as it is, it's good. It's sort of in the spot that you need it. If you were going to choke up, it'd be good to have it up here, but this area, this finish isn't slick. So, I mean, choking up like this ergonomically, not going to be an issue at all. All right, and now as we move on back, we can see we do have open frame construction. We do have some nice skeletonizing of the liners. And what's funny is I've seen that less and less on models lately. It used to be a thing. It used to be like almost every knife I had liners that were skeletonized, and more, I don't know, maybe it's just the knives I'm getting, but I just haven't seen it as often lately. So there's that. We do have a pretty interesting over like sized pivot. Nothing really to say about that, but aesthetics. It's not bad looking because it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't take over the look of the knife, but yeah, there it is. Let's see, liner lock mechanism right here, and here is that lockup. The lockup on this knife is solid. So that's one of the big things that I was like really zoning in on, making sure that this was going to be good. Make or break it kind of stuff with a knife in this price range. It's got to have great lockup. This one does, so really happy about that. The G10 handle scales, so let's focus on these for a bit. So the G10 scales here are a really interesting kind of pattern with a good amount of texture and traction. And just this color, my camera's struggling a little bit with this color today. So yeah, I'll insert pictures and stuff as well. But as you might be able to see, it's just got this like checkeriness, and the highest traction is on top of these little like rectangles. And so it gives you a lot of points of contact. It isn't sharp. So as far as being comfortable in hand, it's excellent. Good machining onto the edges as well. So again, just finished very nicely. And I think this might be borderline going to carve up some pants pockets. But for me, that's not a big deal. I don't mind that at all. And it's not nearly as bad as, say, like cold steel or anything else. I think they've almost really nailed the Goldilocks aspect of it, getting it like pretty close to perfect. The G10 scales, just to sum it up, the G10 scales are a big positive when it comes to this knife. And then as we continue to move on back, you can see we have these like black standoffs. We don't have a lanyard hole, but take a look at this. So I think, all right, so sorry about that difficulty focusing, but what we have is the back of the knife here where the pocket clip is and the standoffs. And what I was trying to show and was struggling with was we have these two larger standoffs that are basically the body screws, but then this much smaller one right here all the way on the corner. It doesn't have any hardware externally, it's all internally held on. And this could really serve as just an extra standoff to help you like insert a lanyard if you wanted to. So a little bit of a cool touch, and you can see this like this gap where you could thread that cord right through if you wanted to. So you could do it that way. So that is a neat little touch without sort of disturbing the continuity of the scale with a big lanyard hole, which there really isn't room for on this model anyway. So that's all I was trying to point out. But anyway, flipping it over and taking a look at the clip, we do have a deep carry 2-position pocket clip. It's going to be tip up only. You can see there's a little bit of curvature to it. So if you do flip it over and carry it left side, it is going to to have a little bit of like curvature against the rest of the lines of the knife, but it does fit on actually pretty well, so it isn't that big of a deal. We do have this like empty hole where, you know, you would insert the bottom part of the clip. Don't really like that for aesthetic reasons, but it isn't really a deal breaker or anything too terrible. All right, so getting into the rest of it, I know I've already touched on ergos a little bit, but here is the way that my hand looks on the knife. You probably know I have like a medium to smaller hands, so anyone with larger hands, you will have some real estate still. There's no real way to choke up. We have the guard here, so, and what I mean is like there's no footward choil. There is a sharpening choil, which is definitely a good thing, but really going to be in this position, choked up further. For me, a lot of draw cuts holding it like this is very comfortable as well. Ergos on this knife are a big win, a big, big win. The other big win, one of the other big wins, is the action. This thing is super smooth. So I'm digging that aspect of it. Love a good flipper that flies open and this one closes and drops really nicely, even though the blade is very light. So sometimes with lighter blades, I have a harder time getting the blade to drop, but this one does. Here, the D10. It's good. Off camera, shaking it. Knife isn't going to shake out. So it's not perfectly snappy opening, but it's more than adequate. So the price point on this knife, guys, what I paid $60, $59.99 on Steel Will's website. So I pre-ordered it from them. I don't know if there's going to be any markdown going to places like Blade HQ, Knife Center, stuff like that. I don't know what the actual selling price will be. What I can tell you is at $60, I'm very satisfied with this purchase. Very happy with it. What this knife has done for me, it's really sort of reinvigorated my opinion of the Steel Will brand. And one thing that I talk about more and more is just what your personal preferences are and what your needs are in a knife, really lending themselves to your opinion. You know, that's really what's going to shape your opinion. It doesn't matter how good overall it is. If there's one little nitpicky thing that bothers you, it's going to kill the whole thing. You know, whatever your priorities are, that's what you're going to focus on. And all of my priorities with this knife have been hit. Action, ergos, lockup, the look of it. I mean, all the main stuff. D2 steel, I like it, you know, but I wouldn't complain if it were a different steel, you know. So the stuff that I'm really focused on is all being met. And the thing that makes it a huge home run for me was the expectation from the company and the brand. Because if we're being really honest with Steel Will, guys, I mean, a lot of their budget stuff, their more inexpensive stuff just hasn't impressed me that much. It just hasn't been home runs for me. I really do appreciate knives like the Cut Jack and, what was it, the Modus, and the Intrigue being budget friendly with decent-ish materials, but I just didn't like the way they performed, especially the flipping and opening action. It just sort of turned me off to things, and I was able to handle the Resident, and I really like that knife, and I might end up getting that one still. And I was able to handle the Piercer, and I like that one as well. But this was the first one that jumped out at me and said, you need to pick up this design. And so my hopes were very high for this. Were very high. My expectation was high, and it was one of those. This was one of those purchases where it was like, this is Steel Will's chance to really push back into the front of my mind when it comes to my opinion of them, and they absolutely crushed it. So for me, like, this is sort of going to be a game changer. This is a great knife, a great purchase at $60. You might be able to get it cheaper depending on how it's listed, but yeah, I can't say enough about it, especially, you know, when you have looks that are combining with just functional and manufacturing quality, we're good here. So, yeah, that's really all I got, guys. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. What are your thoughts on Steel Will? What are your thoughts on this model? Am I saying it right? Let me know about all that. Definitely check out my buddy Knife Crazy on his channel as well, guys. But, yeah, I'll talk with you soon. Thanks for watching, and take care. Have a good one.